The dawn of June 12th, 2023, broke over Suncoast Reptile Haven in St. Augustine, Florida, with a brilliance that seemed to promise perfection. The sun painted the marshlands in hues of gold and coral, its rays glinting off the glassy surface of the sanctuary's lagoons. The air carried the briny scent of the Atlantic, mingling with the earthy tang of mangroves and the faint hum of dragonflies dancing above the water. By 8:30 a.m., the open-air amphitheater buzzed with excitement, its 400 seats filling with a diverse crowd, families clutching iced coffees, retirees in straw hats, and 60 third graders from Coastal Pines Elementary, their voices a high-pitched chorus of anticipation. Their crumpled programs emblazoned with images of gaping crocodile jaws, fluttered in the humid breeze. The main event, a high-stakes performance led by Sarah Delgado, the sanctuary's star trainer, was moments away. Sarah, alongside Grok, a 15-foot, 1,800-pound Nile crocodile, was set to deliver a show that would leave the audience breathless, a display of trust between human and predator that had made Suncoast a global destination. Sarah Delgado, 35, was more than a trainer. She was a phenomenon. For 14 years, she'd been the heartbeat of Suncoast, her fearless charisma transforming the modest reptile park into a must-see attraction. Her X videos, heart-pounding clips of her swimming alongside massive crocodiles, hand-feeding them slabs of raw pork, or guiding them through tricks with a flick of her wrist, had amassed 3.2 million followers and over 100 million views. Her most iconic video, where she coaxed Grok to leap from the water to snatch a fish from her hand, had gone viral, earning her the nickname Crocodile Siren. To her fans, she was a fearless educator, bridging the gap between humans and nature's most misunderstood predators. To her colleagues, she was a force of nature, relentless, magnetic, and utterly devoted to the reptiles she called her family. But on this sweltering morning, the stage was set for a tragedy that would unravel her legacy and scar every soul in the stands. At 10 a.m., the amphitheater's speakers crackled to life, playing a lively instrumental track as Sarah strode onto the circular platform overlooking Grok's enclosure. The pool, 40 feet wide and framed by low concrete barriers draped with Spanish moss, shimmered under the Florida sun. Sarah's navy wetsuit hugged her athletic frame, her wireless headset amplifying her warm, confident voice. "Good morning, everyone," she called, her hazel eyes sparkling as she scanned the crowd. "Today, you're going to witness something extraordinary. A bond between a human and a crocodile built on trust and respect." The third graders erupted in cheers, their voices bouncing off the concrete walls, their programs waving like tiny flags. Their teachers, perched on the edge of their seats, exchanged nervous glances, sensing the weight of the moment. Below, Grok floated in the pool's center, his massive body a shadowy behemoth, his amber eyes glinting like polished agates. To the untrained eye, he was a picture of calm, a prehistoric giant at rest. But to Javier Ruiz, a grizzled keeper with 12 years at Suncoast, Grok's stillness was a red flag, a predator coiled, senses razor-sharp, waiting for the perfect moment. Javier, stationed near the enclosure's emergency gate, felt a cold knot tighten in his chest. That morning, Grok had been off, refusing his breakfast of fish and pork, thrashing his tail against the pool's walls, and locking his gaze on the staff with an intensity that made Javier's skin prickle. At 7:30 a.m., during the pre-show check, Grok had paced the enclosure's edges in tight, repetitive loops, his eyes tracking every movement with unnerving focus. "Sarah, he's not right today," Javier radioed, his voice low but urgent. "Let's skip the close-up stuff." Sarah, adjusting her headset, glanced back with a reassuring smile, her dark braids swaying. "He's just amped for the crowd," she replied, her tone light, almost playful. "Grok thrives on the spotlight." Javier hesitated, his hand lingering on the radio, but Sarah's confidence was infectious. Against his better judgment, he nodded, hoping her decade-long bond with Grok would hold. At 10:15 a.m., Sarah announced her signature act, the Harmony Walk. She would wade into Grok's pool, standing just 3 feet from the 1,800-pound crocodile, to demonstrate their unbreakable trust. The crowd leaned forward, phones raised, their screens glowing as they recorded the moment. Sarah unlatched the enclosure gate with a practiced flick, her boots splashing as she stepped onto a submerged ledge, the water lapping at her knees. The scene was mesmerizing. Sarah's voice, steady and engaging, filled the amphitheater as she spoke of Nile crocodiles' ancient lineage, their role as apex predators, and their misunderstood intelligence. "Grok isn't just an animal, he's my partner, and he knows I'd never harm him." The third graders gasped in awe, their eyes wide, their programs clutched tightly. For a fleeting moment, it seemed her confidence was justified. Grok remained still, his massive form floating like a log, his snout barely breaking the surface, his eyes half closed in apparent calm. Then at 10:18 a.m., the world fractured. Without warning, Grok exploded from the water, his 15-foot body surging forward with a speed that defied his bulk. His jaws, capable of crushing bone with 4,000 pounds of force per square inch, snapped shut around Sarah's right thigh with a sickening crunch. Her scream, amplified by the headset, ripped through the amphitheater, a raw, guttural cry of, "Oh God, he's got me!" that silenced the crowd's cheers. The third graders' gasps dissolved into piercing shrieks, their programs fluttering to the ground like fallen leaves. Teachers scrambled to pull students back from the barriers, their voices cracking with panic. "Get back! Get back!" But the crowd was paralyzed, their eyes locked on the horror unfolding below. Sarah thrashed, her hands clawing at the slick concrete, her nails scraping futilely as Grok yanked her into deeper water, his tail whipping the surface into a frothy spray, the water turning a sickly pink. Javier sprinted toward the emergency pole, a 10-foot steel rod designed to pry crocodiles away, his voice booming, "Get the distractors, now!" Maria Gomez, a 24-year-old junior trainer, fumbled with the emergency radio, her hands trembling as she screamed, "Grok's attacking! We need help right now!" In the bleachers, parents shielded their children's eyes, but dozens of phones kept rolling, capturing the blood pooling in the water, Sarah's thrashing form, and Grok's relentless grip. Sarah surfaced once more, her face a mask of blood and desperation, her voice a ragged whisper through the headset. "Please, stop him!" Then Grok began his death roll, a lethal technique honed over millions of years. His massive body spun, twisting Sarah like a rag doll, the water churning into a crimson froth as his jaws tightened, the sound of snapping bones swallowed by the crowd's screams. Javier thrust the pole toward Grok's snout, aiming for the sensitive nerve clusters. But the crocodile's armored hide deflected the blow, the rod clanging uselessly against his scales. Other staff tossed buckets of fish into the pool, hoping to distract him. But Grok was locked in, his predatory instincts obliterating years of training. For 2 excruciating minutes, Sarah was at his mercy, her body whipped through the water by forces no human could withstand. The third graders' sobs echoed like a chorus of grief, their teachers shouting for order as parents clutched their children, some still filming the chaos. At 10:20 a.m., Grok suddenly released her, retreating to the pool's far end for reasons no one could fathom. Sarah's broken body floated to the surface, her wetsuit shredded, her face unrecognizable, her right leg mangled into a pulp of flesh and bone. Emergency medics stormed the enclosure at 10:25 a.m., their boots pounding the concrete as they hauled Sarah onto the platform. Their gear clattered as they began CPR, their faces grim, their hands slick with blood. But her injuries were catastrophic, her femur shattered, her torso lacerated by deep gashes, her pulse gone. At 10:29 a.m., Sarah Delgado, 35, was pronounced dead, her body ravaged by the creatures she'd trusted with her life. The amphitheater erupted into pandemonium, parents ushering children toward the exits, their screams mingling with the wail of approaching sirens. Suncoast's intercom crackled with a trembling voice. The park is closing immediately due to a critical incident, but the damage was irreversible. By noon, grainy videos of the attack flooded X, each clip racking up millions of views, sparking a wildfire of grief, outrage, and questions about the ethics of keeping such predators in captivity. Sarah Delgado wasn't just a trainer, she was a legend, dubbed the Crocodile Siren for her mesmerizing ability to connect with reptiles. Born in Miami to a Cuban-American family, she discovered her passion for wildlife at 10, rescuing injured lizards from her backyard and nursing them back to health in shoeboxes lined with grass. By 16, she was volunteering at local zoos, her curiosity insatiable. At 21, armed with a zoology degree from the University of Florida, she joined Suncoast as a volunteer, scrubbing enclosures and hauling buckets of fish under the blistering Florida sun. Her gift with animals was undeniable. She could calm a hissing alligator with a glance, her gentle commands coaxing even the most volatile reptiles into compliance. By 27, she was head trainer, choreographing shows that blended education with spectacle, her performances drawing crowds from across the globe. Her presence catapulted her to stardom. Videos of her diving into murky pools, guiding Grok through tricks, or nuzzling his snout, her petite frame dwarfed by his prehistoric power, earned millions of views and floods of donations. Her most famous clip, where she stood motionless as Grok glided past her in the water, had 80 million views, cementing her as a wildlife icon. To her 3.2 million followers, she was a beacon of conservation, proving that even the most fearsome creatures deserve respect. Crocodiles aren't monsters, she'd say in her videos, her voice firm with conviction. They're survivors, and if you treat them with respect, they'll trust you. Her philosophy, rooted in trust over fear, defined her approach. She shunned traditional methods like prods or restraints, relying instead on intuition and patience. For 14 years, it worked. Grok responded to her cues with eerie precision, snapping his jaws inches from her hands to the delight of gasping audiences. But Sarah's methods were divisive. She performed without barriers, stepping into enclosures with minimal safety gear, trusting her bond with the animals to keep her safe. Federal inspectors cited Suncoast multiple times for inadequate safety protocols, their reports warning of imminent risks in her high-contact demonstrations. Wildlife experts like Dr. Amelia Torres, a crocodilian biologist, voiced concerns. Sarah was brilliant but reckless, Dr. Torres said. She believed her connection with Grok made her immune to his instincts. But crocodiles aren't partners. They're predators, and no amount of trust can erase that. Sarah dismissed the warnings as fear-mongering, insisting her 14 years of experience gave her insights others lacked. Grok and I understand each other, she told colleagues. He's not just a crocodile, he's my family. Her confidence, while inspiring, came at a cost. By 2023, Sarah was pushing boundaries harder than ever, driven by the need to keep Suncoast's shows spectacular. Her immersive experiences, where she entered enclosures without barriers to perform alongside crocodiles, were a hit with visitors, but terrified her colleagues. I begged her to rethink it, said Javier Ruiz. Even if she trusted Grok, he's still a wild animal, with instincts we can't control. Suncoast management, however, leaned on Sarah's star power to keep the park afloat. Her videos and live shows were a financial lifeline, drawing crowds and donations in an era of declining funding and soaring insurance costs. Minimal safety measures were added, an extra staff member, a single emergency pole, but her high-risk performances continued unchecked. In the months leading up to the tragedy, Sarah's behavior grew erratic. She worked grueling 16-hour days, planning ever more daring shows to top her viral hits. She signed a deal for a Netflix series, Reptile Rhythms, set to chronicle her life with Suncoast crocodiles. To her brother, Carlos, she confided her excitement about a revolutionary performance planned for June 12th. I'm going to show the world what's possible when humans and crocodiles truly connect, she said, her voice brimming with ambition. Colleagues noticed a manic edge to her confidence, a need to chase the adrenaline of the crowd's gas. She was addicted to that moment when the audience held its breath, Javier recalled. Each show had to be bigger, riskier. She was trapped by her own success. Grok was no ordinary crocodile. At 15 feet long and 1,800 pounds, he was a living relic of the prehistoric world, a Nile crocodile with jaws that could crush steel and a mind sharpened by millions of years of evolution. His intelligence set him apart. Trainers described him as a strategist, capable of learning complex routines and even anticipating human behavior. But that intelligence also made him unpredictable, a trait that made him both a star and a liability. Grok's story began in tragedy. Captured as a juvenile in Uganda's Nile River in 2009, he was smuggled into the U.S. through the illegal wildlife trade, sold to a black market dealer who kept him in a cramped, filthy concrete pen. Malnourished and psychologically scarred, he was rescued by Suncoast in 2012 after a raid shut down the operation. Sarah took charge of his rehabilitation, spending months nursing him back to health with a specially designed enclosure, a deep pool with basking platforms, mangroves, and enrichment to stimulate his mind. To casual observers, Grok seemed well-adjusted, gliding through his pool with a calm that belied his power. But Crocodile experts saw something else: hypervigilance, a predator's instinct that never slept. Grok was always watching, said Dr. Marcus Bell, a reptile behaviorist. He tracked every movement, cataloged every routine. Most crocodiles react. Grok planned. Over the years, warning signs emerged. In 2022, Grok began displaying displacement behaviors, repetitive swimming patterns, aggressive posturing near barriers, and an intense focus on staff during feedings. He'd guard his meals obsessively, snapping at imaginary threats and refusing food if routines were disrupted. A consulting veterinarian recommended reducing public interactions, citing stress, but Sarah saw these behaviors as signs of intelligence and engagement. "He's not stressed, he's bonding with us," she'd say, interpreting his fixation as affection. In March 2023, a chilling incident set off alarms. During routine maintenance, Grok positioned himself between Sarah and the enclosure's exit, blocking her path for 20 minutes. Staff used fish to distract him, but the episode was a red flag. "That wasn't affection," Dr. Torres said. "It was dominance. He was testing her, asserting control over his territory." Sarah, however, saw it differently. She posted a video on X, laughing about how Grok didn't want me to leave, framing his behavior as endearing. Wildlife experts were horrified, warning that such actions signaled hunting behavior, not bonding. But Suncoast's financial dependence on Sarah's star power silenced dissent. Grok was the centerpiece of her most popular shows, and removing him would mean losing ticket sales and donations. In April 2023, he snapped at Javier during a cleaning session, his jaws missing by inches. "It wasn't a warning," Javier recalled. "He tracked me, positioned himself, and struck. It felt like he was hunting." Sarah dismissed it as territorial instinct, but the pattern was clear. Grok was asserting dominance, growing confident in his ability to control the humans around him. On the morning of June 12th, Grok's behavior screamed danger. He refused his breakfast, paced aggressively, and positioned himself near the viewing area, his eyes locked on the crowd. Javier urged Sarah to cancel the show, but she brushed him off. "He's just excited," she said, her voice brimming with the same unshakable confidence that had carried her for 14 years. It was the last decision she would make. Suncoast Reptile Haven was built on a noble dream: to connect people with nature's most misunderstood creatures. Its promotional materials painted a picture of education and conservation, but behind the polished displays lay a darker reality. Over 2 decades, the sanctuary had been cited repeatedly for safety violations: faulty barriers, inadequate emergency equipment, and injuries during rehearsals. Each time, management paid fines, issued apologies, and moved on, prioritizing spectacle over safety. Former staff described a culture of denial, where warning signs were ignored, injuries downplayed, and whistleblowers silenced with non-disclosure agreements. "They were addicted to the show," said Dr. Elena Rivera, Sarah's former mentor. "Sarah's performances kept the lights on, but they were gambling with lives." The sanctuary's financial situation was precarious. Declining government grants, skyrocketing insurance costs, and competition from larger zoos put immense pressure on revenue. Sarah's viral videos and live shows were often the difference between meeting payroll and closing doors. Her X-following, over 3.2 million strong, brought donations and international fame, but it also made her untouchable. When federal inspectors issued warnings about her barrier-free demonstrations, management implemented token safety measures: a single pole, an extra staff member, but allowed her to continue. "Sarah was the golden goose," said Maria Gomez. They couldn't afford to rein her in. Staff turnover told a grim story. Between 2020 and 2023, Suncoast lost 70% of its experienced handlers, many citing safety concerns. "I love the animal," said former trainer Luis Hernandez, "but I couldn't sleep knowing someone would get hurt." Sarah was playing Russian roulette with 1,800-pound predators. In 2022, a group of crocodilian researchers published an open letter criticizing Suncoast's high-risk practices, warning that prioritizing entertainment over safety could lead to disaster. Sarah dismissed it as jealousy from lab-bound academics, but the letter's warnings were prophetic. The tragedy's fallout was swift and devastating. By noon, state wildlife authorities had locked Suncoast gates, launching a probe that uncovered a litany of violations: outdated emergency protocols, undertrained staff, and barriers that failed to meet federal standards. Grok was sedated and relocated to a high-security facility in Orlando, where he would live out his days in isolation, a prisoner of his own instincts. Lawsuits piled up. Sarah's family filed a wrongful death claim, alleging gross negligence, while parents of the 63rd graders sued for emotional trauma, their children plagued by nightmares of blood-soaked water and snapping jaws. The videos, shared millions of times on X, fueled a national debate about captive wildlife, the ethics of interactive shows, and the responsibility of educators to prioritize safety over spectacle. The 63rd graders, now in therapy, carry the scars of that day. Many suffer from PTSD, some refusing to visit zoos, aquariums, or even beaches. "They learned a lesson no child should have to learn," said Dr. Torres. "Nature isn't a pet, it's a force, and it demands respect." Sarah's family, shattered by her loss, launched the Sarah Delgado Conservation Fund, channeling donations to protect wild crocodile habitats in Africa. "She'd want her legacy to live on through conservation," said her brother Carlos, his voice breaking. "But she should still be here." Suncoast remains shuttered, its once vibrant grounds overtaken by weeds, its enclosures silent. A small memorial garden now stands where Sarah gave her final performance. A simple plaque reading, "In memory of Sarah Delgado, who loved crocodiles with all her heart, but forgot they were wild." Her death became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that no amount of trust can override millions of years of evolution. Her legacy is a paradox, a woman who inspired millions to love wildlife, yet paid the ultimate price for underestimating it. The tragedy also sparked broader change. In July 2023, Florida passed the Delgado Safety Act, mandating stricter regulations for captive wildlife facilities, including mandatory barriers and enhanced emergency training. Animal rights groups, galvanized by the videos, pushed for bans on high-contact performances nationwide, citing Sarah's death as proof of their dangers. On X, debates raged. Some mourned Sarah as a martyr for conservation, others condemned her as reckless, blaming her for romanticizing dangerous animals. Her videos, once symbols of awe, became flashpoints in a polarized conversation about humanity's relationship with nature. Sarah died doing what she loved, sharing her passion for reptiles with the world. But her death was preventable, the result of overconfidence, institutional negligence, and a failure to heed the warnings of a predator's nature. Her story lives on in the millions who watched her, admired her courage, and now grapple with the cost of her passion. It's a story of love, hubris, and the unforgiving power of the wild. A reminder that even the strongest bonds can snap under the weight of instinct. If this story grips you, subscribe, like, and share this video with friends. We bring you true wildlife stories that demand to be remembered, understood, and learned from. Respect the wild, and we'll see you in the next video.